The shuttle hissed as it docked with the outer ring of the Intergalactic Combat Academy, a vast orbital facility spinning slowly above the fractured ice world of Varnaxis. New cadets from over 40 species had gathered aboard, each chosen from their respective homeworlds through rigorous trials and sponsorships. For many, it was the culmination of years of blood, discipline, and pride. For one of them, it was quiet. Liam Vance stepped off the transport last, his boots making no sound on the metallic walkway despite its amplification grid designed to register each arrival with sonic resonance. His gait was calm and deliberate, arms relaxed at his sides, his expression unreadable. While the others chatted, sometimes in words, sometimes in pheromone pulses or light signals, he remained still, observing without engaging. Most dismissed him as shy. Others glanced at his slight frame and saw only weakness. Within an hour of landing, the cadets were divided into dorm clusters, assigned uniforms tailored to their biology, and handed neural link briefings in their preferred languages. In Cluster Gamma 9, the room assignments paired Liam with a spined, chitin-covered Velkaran named Draknal, a loud and competitive warrior from a high-pressure planet. Draknal introduced himself with a slap to his own chest and a challenge to spar for bunk priority. Liam merely nodded and placed his bag on the top bunk, ignoring the challenge entirely. The first week was orientation, combat drills, theoretical warfare briefings, galactic ethics lectures, and daily fitness benchmarks. Each session exposed the new cadets to brutal training that humbled even the proudest species. Still, even the most exhausted cadets laughed or groaned or bragged after the sessions ended. Liam said nothing. His silence began to draw attention. In tactical simulation labs, while other cadets discussed flanking maneuvers or shield dampening frequencies, Liam simply followed instructions. In zero-G combat rings, he floated with calculated restraint, never volunteering for matches. In team obstacle runs, he moved in sync with his unit, but never issued commands or complaints. Most assumed he lacked initiative. Some whispered that perhaps Earth had sent a reject. Draknal took every opportunity to mock him loudly in the mess hall, making jokes about the mute from the mud ball. The Velkaran's claws clicked against the table as he gestured toward Liam's untouched food tray, loudly wondering if human metabolism even needed sustenance, or if Earth cadets absorbed nutrients through awkward silence. Liam ignored him. Soon, others joined in. Cadets from the volcanic world of Draxon and the aquatic trenches of Sealar began teasing him in their own languages, sometimes translating the insults just to make sure he heard. His lack of reaction only fueled them. Even a few instructors began to question his presence. During the weekly progress review, one holographic report simply read, "Human cadet, compliant but socially inert. Combat engagement, non-existent. Potential, unclear." Still, Liam never missed a session. He never faltered during gravity shifts or failed a directive. He simply did everything asked, quietly, precisely, with an unsettling calm. It was during a kinetic sparring drill in week 2 that tensions escalated. The cadets were paired randomly and told to engage in non-lethal hand-to-hand combat under observation. Liam was matched with a lithoid from the Iridani belt named Korthesh, a crystalline humanoid whose species used vibration as both weapon and language. Korthesh mocked him as they took positions. "Careful, human. Try not to break your soft limbs on my edges." The rest of the class chuckled. The drill sergeant, Instructor K-Rex, watched with his arms crossed from a raised platform above. The fight began. Korthesh charged. Liam sidestepped, not countering, not striking, only deflecting. His movements were precise and efficient, but passive. Korthesh grew more aggressive, launching heavier blows, throwing his weight around. Still, Liam didn't respond. After 2 minutes, the match ended with no declared winner. Instructor K-Rex sneered. "You call that combat? Earthlings are slower than I expected. Maybe next time we'll pit him against one of the cleaning drones." Laughter followed. Liam simply walked off the mat. Kerex's disdain became more obvious each day. A decorated war veteran from the Thernic fronts, Kerex had no patience for weakness, or what he perceived as such. His species revered dominance, and in his eyes, Liam embodied none of it. He began using Earth as a punching bag during lectures, referring to its historical reliance on outdated combustion tech and primitive atmospheric vehicles. During a Xenowar theory class, he gestured to Liam while lecturing on interstellar deployment strategy. Some worlds breed warriors, others breed politicians, and some, he said, looking directly at Liam, breed only passengers. The insult hung in the air. Still, Liam said nothing. He watched, he listened, he recorded every movement, every attack vector, every reaction from every cadet and instructor, but outwardly he remained the silent one, the observer, the ghost in a squad of loud, hungry voices. And yet, despite the insults and suspicion, Liam never retaliated. Not verbally, not physically. He ate alone, trained alone, reviewed debriefs alone. Instructors marked him down for low team integration and lack of initiative. Others began placing bets on how long he'd last before being discharged, but not everyone hated him. Some cadets began to notice things. He always scored perfectly in reaction time drills, without seeming to try. He never stumbled during environment shifts, even when the gravity fluctuated without warning. His heart rate never spiked during high-stress tests. During one emergency evac simulation, while others screamed or panicked in the dark, he navigated the halls using nothing but echo and memory. When one cadet asked him how, he simply looked at her and tilted his head, wordless, but not unkind. There was something about him, something simmering underneath the silence, and by the end of week 3, the Academy would find out exactly what it was. But for now, in the eyes of the galaxy, Liam Vance was just a quiet, unremarkable boy from Earth, easy to mock, easy to ignore, which, as it would turn out, was exactly how he wanted it. The training compound's third cycle began with increased pressure and less leniency. Simulations became longer. Rations were reduced to sharpen survival instincts. Physical fatigue was now a strategic component, not an obstacle. The instructors began rotating squad leaders among the cadets, evaluating not just combat potential, but also command aptitude. In the process, those who had once mocked each other were now expected to collaborate. This shift irritated many of the more dominant species, especially those accustomed to individual glory. Among them, Instructor Kerex seemed most eager to weed out those he considered mentally or culturally unfit for leadership, and Liam remained his favorite target for disdain. Kerex stood tall on his digitigrade legs, his skin a mottled canvas of dark plates and faded battle scars. His voice carried even without amplification, deep and full of static from the throat modulator his species used to shape their guttural speech for interspecies comprehension. He stalked through formations like a predator sizing up livestock, his gleaming eyes never blinking. When he spoke, cadets snapped into attention out of instinct, not respect. During a midday leadership seminar in the tactics chamber, Kerex displayed a holographic representation of a battlefield from the Kalex Rebellion. Multicolored tokens represented the forces of several alien species. Every cadet leaned in, fascinated by the complexities of planetary siege dynamics, except Liam, who stood motionless at the back, eyes scanning the data with quiet precision. Kerex activated a different scenario. This time, Earth forces were present. He used them as an example of tactical failure, how their minimal shielding and archaic projectile weapons made them outclassed in most interstellar conflicts. He zoomed in on the human platoon markers and turned toward the cadets. "You see this?" he growled. "Humans rely on luck, emotion, and stubbornness. They lack evolutionary superiority, no natural armor, no enhanced vision. Their kind hides behind treaties and alliances, offering little of value in real conflict." The air went stiff. A few cadets laughed awkwardly. Draknal coughed loudly to get attention and muttered, Mudball thinking. Karex smirked and continued. Even their world is soft, atmosphere balanced, gravity moderate, predators mostly extinct, no real crucible to shape resilience. It is no wonder Earth sends us silence instead of strength. Karex gestured directly at Liam, still standing silently at the back. Explain, cadet, he barked. Why would a weak world send a mute to a warrior's academy? Liam didn't move. His expression didn't change, but he was listening, more attentively than anyone realized. Karex stepped closer. Do you understand me, human? Or did your species fail to teach you how to speak? Laughter spread again, louder this time. Even some instructors present didn't intervene. This wasn't just a mockery. It was a challenge disguised as insult. Liam's silence had kept him safe from politics, but now it painted him as defenseless. And yet, he still said nothing. Karex turned away in disgust. Pathetic. Liam raised his hand. The gesture stopped everything. No one had seen him do it before. It wasn't frantic or angry, just a single deliberate lift of the arm, hand open, fingers relaxed. Karex turned, puzzled. Speak then, the instructor snapped. Liam stepped forward. His boots made no noise. He stopped a few feet in front of Karex and locked eyes with him. I request a combat session, Liam said calmly. His voice was clear, measured, and disturbingly steady. Against you, not simulation, real time, full manual engagement. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then noise exploded across the chamber, murmurs, chuckles, disbelief. A few cadets gasped outright. Karex narrowed his eyes. You what? The instructor asked, baring sharp, uneven teeth. I challenge you to a live combat match, Liam repeated. No enhancements. No energy shields. No AI support. You and me, hand to hand. Karex stared at him, expression unreadable. The laughter had stopped. Everyone was watching now, unsure whether this was suicidal or revolutionary. You presume to challenge me, human? Karex asked slowly. Liam nodded once. Yes. Explain your purpose. Are you trying to impress the weak or merely expedite your failure? Liam's eyes didn't waver. Neither. I've watched enough. The words landed heavy. For a moment, Karex didn't respond. Then he threw back his head and let out a sharp, barking laugh, not one of humor, but of contempt and interest mixed together. Accepted, Karex growled. Tomorrow, dawn cycle, Arena 3. He turned to the rest of the class. This academy allows one sanctioned instructor-cadet engagement per semester. Earthling has claimed it. So be it. All cadets will attend. Perhaps you'll learn what happens when arrogance overrides biology. As Karex left the room, a trail of silence followed him. Some cadets stared at Liam with disbelief, others with awe, a few with pity. Draknal looked confused, torn between hoping Liam would be flattened and realizing something he'd never considered. The human wasn't scared. Liam returned to his place at the back of the room. He didn't explain himself. He didn't gloat. He stood quietly, hands behind his back, eyes forward. That night, rumors rippled through the dormitories. Some cadets speculated Liam had a death wish. Others guessed he had undergone illegal augmentations. There were whispers that maybe his silence wasn't weakness, but calculation. Only one person visited him. A cadet named Sira, a reptilian from the jungle world of Lear, approached his room just before lights out. She was smaller than him, scaled with iridescent patterns that flickered under dim light. She stood in his doorway without entering. Why now? She asked. Liam looked at her but didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, because he stopped insulting me. He started insulting my world. Sira tilted her head. You waited this long for that? Liam didn't smile, but there was something faintly like amusement in his voice. It was the only insult that mattered. She didn't reply, but when she left, her gait was slower, less sure. The morning came fast. The arena was set. The cadets arrived early. Karex stood in the center already, arms crossed, unarmored, his posture relaxed, but ready. The floor was bare, no enhancements, no auto balance, no terrain shifts. This would be pure, unfiltered combat. Liam stepped in without ceremony. He wore the same standard uniform as the others. No upgrades, no power supports, no kinetic compensators. He didn't stretch, he didn't warm up. He just walked to his side and stopped. Carex pointed at him. "When I end this," he said, "you'll remember that silence is not strength, it's submission." Liam looked him in the eye. "We'll see." The match hadn't even begun, but something had already shifted in the room. For the first time, no one laughed. Carex took a step forward. Liam didn't move. The arena lights dimmed, and the signal sounded. It had begun. The moment the signal blared through the arena, Carex charged without hesitation. His movements were like a kinetic sculpture, raw, brutal force guided by decades of battle. The ground vibrated under his clawed feet, his shoulder dropping low to deliver a strike that had likely ended dozens of training matches in the past. But Liam didn't flinch. He stepped aside at the last second, letting the force of Carex's charge pass through empty air. Carex spun around instantly, using the momentum to deliver a sweeping kick with a low growl. Liam ducked just beneath the arc, barely shifting his weight. The instructor's leg sliced over his head like a steel beam. Then came an elbow, fast, angled, and heavy. Liam leaned back, narrowly avoiding the hit, his eyes locked on Carex's torso rather than his limbs. The cadets watching from the tiered gallery stood frozen, not because Liam had counterattacked, but because he hadn't. 3 powerful strikes, 3 clean evasions, not a word, not a blink, no wasted motion. Carex grinned. Still hiding, human? He came in again, faster now. A flurry of jabs, claws curling mid-air, his arms driving forward in a rhythm that would overwhelm most opponents. Liam blocked the first 2, parried the third, and sidestepped the fourth. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't even aggressive, but it was clean, surgical, almost detached. Carex growled and switched forms. His movements dropped into the traditional Thurnak stance, where every limb became both weapon and shield. He lunged low, pivoting on his heel to hook Liam's ankle. But Liam jumped, twisted mid-air, and landed 2 paces away, his balance perfect. The arena lights reflected off Carex's plated skin, sweat already beginning to form along his brow. He wasn't used to being dodged. He wasn't used to chasing. And most of all, he wasn't used to silence in the face of fury. Liam didn't taunt. He didn't sneer. He simply watched. Carex growled again, more from frustration than strategy, and closed the distance with a renewed surge. This time, his hands moved faster, feinting at Liam's center while angling for a head strike. Liam deflected, stepped inside the arc of the strike, and placed a single palm against Carex's chest. Then he shoved, hard. It wasn't a punch. It wasn't meant to wound. It was meant to displace. And it did. Carex stumbled back 3 steps, surprised more than hurt. The cadets watching began murmuring, and a few even leaned forward in disbelief. The push wasn't strong by Thurnak standards, but the timing had been perfect, flawless, the kind of precision that came not from instinct, but from an encyclopedic study of the opponent's body mechanics. Carex snarled. "So you've been watching," he said under his breath. Liam didn't respond. His eyes didn't even flicker. Carex lunged again, this time more recklessly. His right hand slashed out, feinting high, while his left curled under for a rib strike. Liam ducked, stepped left, and slammed his forearm into Carex's inner elbow, disrupting the strike mid-motion. Then, with shocking speed, he turned and dropped into a low spin, sweeping Carex's legs out from under him. The instructor hit the floor with a heavy crash. Gasps erupted from the observation gallery. No one had ever seen Carex on the ground, certainly not by the hand of a first-year cadet. Liam stood still, breathing evenly. His hands were lowered. He hadn't followed through. He hadn't attacked. He had simply stopped the fight without finishing it. Carex climbed to his feet slowly, his expression no longer mocking. His eyes narrowed, calculating. "You could have broken my arm," he said flatly. Liam replied, "Yes." "You didn't." Liam remained silent. KRX exhaled sharply through his nostrils. His stance changed again, more defensive, more wary. The match had shifted. The predator now circled a mystery he didn't understand. He paced slowly to the left, his eyes never leaving Liam's. His next attack was slower, more deliberate. A right hook, mid-height, strong but controlled. Liam stepped in, angled his wrist, and redirected the strike using his opponent's own weight. KRX stumbled again, just slightly, but enough to widen his eyes. The instructor jumped back and let out a sharp, barking laugh. "You've been hiding your strength." Liam's voice was low. "I've been waiting." "For what?" KRX asked. "For this." KRX paused. Then he charged again, but this time it wasn't for dominance. It was to test, to learn, to understand what he had missed. He threw a spinning backhand, and Liam ducked under it and twisted, catching KRX's wrist mid-rotation. In a single, fluid movement, he locked the arm and dropped into a hip throw. KRX crashed down again, harder this time. A silence followed. This time, Liam held the instructor's arm in place, perfectly positioned to break it at the elbow. Liam looked down at him. "Do you yield?" he asked. KRX stared up at him. His eyes shimmered, not with anger, but with dawning realization. "Yes." Liam released the hold instantly and stepped back. The match was over. The arena lights brightened. A long, static-filled tone echoed over the speakers, signaling an end to the combat. The cadets in the gallery didn't cheer. They didn't speak. Many didn't even blink. What they had just witnessed wasn't a fluke. It wasn't luck. It was something else. KRX rose slowly, rubbing his arm. He stared at Liam for several long seconds before nodding once. "Dismissed," he said quietly. Liam turned and walked off the floor, still calm, still wordless. As he reached the corridor leading back to the dorm wings, whispers began spreading through the academy like wildfire. The human hadn't just survived. He hadn't just won. He had exposed the blind arrogance of those who believed strength came only from size, noise, or reputation. In the hours that followed, footage of the duel began circulating through internal academy feeds. Frame-by-frame analyses popped up on cadet terminals. Instructor KRX didn't deny it. In fact, he authorized its use for educational review. Some cadets remained skeptical. Others were shaken. A few were furious at being proven wrong so publicly. Draknal kept his distance, avoiding eye contact with anyone. But most cadets simply watched the footage again and again, rewinding the moment Liam caught the instructor's wrist like it weighed nothing. By nightfall, Liam had earned a nickname from the Draxon cohort, Ghost Strike, the one who moves in silence and strikes without warning. Even the aquatic Sealar cadets began referring to him by a respectful tonal wave pattern usually reserved for elite soldiers. Liam said nothing to anyone. He returned to his quarters, removed his uniform, and sat on the lower bunk without turning on the lights. His breathing slowed, his muscles relaxed, and for the first time in weeks, he closed his eyes without needing to stay alert. The match was over, the message had been delivered, and the real training had only just begun. Liam rose early, as he always did. The dormitory was still steeped in silence, interrupted only by the low hum of life support systems embedded in the walls. He sat on the edge of his bunk, fastening the clasps of his uniform slowly, methodically, as the soft glow of the artificial sunrise bled through the frosted wall panels. Today, he didn't need to be anywhere special. There were no drills, no physical exams, no combat rotations, but he knew what was coming. When he entered the corridor, cadets parted without speaking, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Some nodded silently. A few watched him like he had grown a second skin. One cadet from the mineral-rich world of Orakthar lowered his gaze and pressed a closed fist over his chest, a gesture of quiet honor. Liam didn't respond. He simply walked past and disappeared into the hallway that led to the instructor level. The summons had arrived before dawn. A plain directive. Cadet Liam Vance. Report to Strategic Debriefing Room 14A. Immediately. No explanation, no tone, just orders. When the door to room 14A slid open, he found it dimly lit, with only a single table and a translucent projection screen stretching across the far wall. Seated at the table was Commander Valen, head of combat analytics, her translucent scales glowing faintly in the low light. Beside her sat a cybernetic intelligence specialist named Colonel Ivar, whose gaze flickered with embedded retinal HUD systems. At the far end, standing with arms crossed, was K-Rex. Liam approached without hesitation and stopped 3 feet from the table. Cadet Vance reporting. Valen gestured toward the empty chair across from her. Sit. He sat. A pause followed. Colonel Ivar tapped twice on a flat datapad, and the room's central projection system came alive. Footage of yesterday's match filled the screen. The resolution was pristine. Every twitch of Liam's footwork, every inch of motion between him and K-Rex was magnified and replayed from multiple angles. It wasn't a review. It was a dissection. Ivar looked up. Do you know what we're looking at, Cadet? Liam's eyes remained on the screen. Yes. Then explain it. He took a breath. I watched his center of gravity shift at the moment of the second feint. The right foot dropped too early on his pivot. That gave me a half-second window to step inside and break the tempo. Once he committed the next step, I knew his hip alignment would collapse if redirected with a downward sweep. Ivar's expression barely changed, but Valen leaned forward slightly, her scaled fingertips curling together. K-Rex was silent. You didn't strike to hurt, Valen observed. You never once aimed for a knockout. You neutralized. Yes. Why? Liam finally looked directly at her. Because it wasn't about him. Valen held his gaze, but didn't press further. Ivar tapped again. The screen shifted from arena footage to a data file, Liam's personal academy profile. At first, it looked standard. Birth records from Earth, test scores, admissions details. But soon, redacted blocks appeared, lines of text replaced with black bars, segments labeled, classified, Earth Military Network Level 4 flashed on the screen. Ivar turned toward him. You've never submitted a full psychological background. Your combat dossier before the Academy is sealed. Even under open cadet protocols, this level of redaction is irregular. Liam didn't blink. That was Earth's stipulation for my enrollment. Do you know what's behind those redactions? Yes. Would you like to explain? Liam paused. I will only explain if instructed by command authority to do so. K-Rex shifted finally, stepping forward. I overestimated your silence and underestimated your experience, he said without sarcasm. That was not a cadet-level duel. No, Liam agreed. So how many engagements have you seen? 4 confirmed, 2 unconfirmed, none disclosed by Earth's Defense Command. Valen tilted her head. Confirmed what? Liam met her eyes again. Confirmed kills. The silence in the room became electric. Colonel Ivar's expression remained unchanged, but his next query came slower. How old were you? 15. Valen exhaled through her nose slit, her voice quieter. How? On-world insurgency near Ganymede outpost. Civilian convoy was compromised. I was in transit with my father, Captain Vance. He was the target. He died. I didn't. And what happened after? Liam's jaw clenched, but his voice didn't waver. I survived. For 3 days. Then Earth forces found me. Command classified my actions as Tier 2 engagement. They offered me placement into the accelerated program. Ivar leaned back slowly. You're not here to learn how to fight. No. You're here so others can learn how humans fight. Liam didn't confirm or deny it. K-Rex spoke again, this time slower. You've been watching since day 1, learning every style, every species. You didn't engage because you were collecting data. Yes. And me? You were the final variable. K-Rex gave a dry laugh and nodded once. Then now I understand. Valen turned off the projection. Command is reviewing your profile. I suspect the redactions will be lifted partially. If they are, cadets will know who you are and what you've done. Are you prepared for that? Yes. Why did you wait this long to speak? Liam's voice was softer now. Because most people hear noise, but if you wait long enough, they'll hear silence. Valen blinked slowly. Dismissed, Cadet Vance. He stood. Karex stepped aside as he passed, but as Liam reached the door, the instructor said, "Well played." Liam stopped, glanced back, and nodded once. "Thank you, sir." He exited without another word. The corridors outside felt warmer now, even though the temperature hadn't changed. As he walked, cadets noticed him again, but not with mockery or speculation. Now it was quiet deference. No one called him Ghost Strike to his face. No one repeated the arena footage out loud. They didn't have to. By the time he returned to Cluster Gamma 9, his shared quarters had already changed. The bunk below his was neatly made, something Draknal had never done before. The Velkaran was sitting at the desk, arms crossed, eyes lowered. Liam approached without expectation. Draknal didn't look up. "You should have told me who you were." Liam sat down calmly on the bed. "I did, just not with words." Draknal scratched the side of his head. "I still don't like you." Liam gave the smallest shrug. "That's fine. But I don't want to fight you anymore." "Then don't." Draknal let out a breath and finally raised his head. "You ever think about leading?" Liam looked out the window. "Not yet." And with that, the room fell into a silence not born of awkwardness, but of mutual understanding, the kind earned in sweat, not in speech. In the weeks that followed, the Academy began rotating Liam into more specialized units. He was placed in mixed species squads designed for rapid adaptive scenarios. His team always performed better than simulations projected. Instructors stopped asking him to prove himself. Instead, they began asking him to teach. A new briefing appeared in his schedule one morning. Advanced Tactics, Guest Cadet Instructor, Vance, L. The class filled up in under 2 hours, and the cadet who had once been mocked for saying nothing now led quietly, because those who had laughed once were now listening with both ears. 3 weeks after the duel, Liam walked into the Strategic Environmental Simulation Lab wearing the standard issue tactical exosuit, no enhancements, no ornamentation. The cadets in the room had arrived early. Some leaned against the reinforced walls. Others sat stiffly, watching him like he carried live ordnance in his hands. No one spoke. No one dared fill the space with idle chatter. The man who once walked unnoticed through these corridors now carried silence behind him like a shadow. The instructor who usually led this module, Commander Zevik, had ceded the session to Liam after an internal council voted unanimously to approve his involvement in cadet-led combat analysis. This was not tradition. Cadets rarely taught other cadets, but Zevik had seen the arena footage. He had seen the debrief logs, and more importantly, he had seen the shift in how other species viewed the humans on base. It was no longer amusement or dismissal. It was caution. It was interest. Liam moved to the front of the room and activated the interface. A terrain schematic appeared above the floor. Forest canopies, marsh trenches, proximity mines layered in random pockets. It was a real-world simulation based on the Virilan Expanse conflict, a multi-front ambush scenario that had taken 3 entire battalions to suppress. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't explain his qualifications. He simply spoke. "None of your tactics will work here." The room held its breath. Liam gestured toward the map. "Standard flanking will be neutralized by heat dispersal fields. Shock walls will disable your climbing gear. And if you fire too early, the acoustic pressure will set off every proximity mine in a 20-meter radius." A cadet from the Soren sector raised his hand, cautious. "What does work then?" Liam's answer was immediate. "Rhythm disruption." The cadets looked at one another, confused. Liam stepped forward, kneeling on the floor to draw with a finger across the light grid. Every field unit has a rhythm: heartbeat, footfall, weapon retraction, breath. The Virelin sensors are keyed to consistency. Break the rhythm. Make your steps irregular. Force the environment to adjust instead of reacting. Silence followed, and then pens began scratching. Terminals recorded. A few cadets began whispering the term disruption cadence. It would appear in combat notes within a week. When the simulation began, cadets executed his plan. Those who followed the irregular step pattern reached the central objective in record time. Those who stuck to doctrine were virtually eliminated within minutes. The playback told the story better than Liam ever could. Later that day, Liam received a coded message marked with the insignia of Earth Command. He opened it alone in his quarters. The transmission included a mission log, details encrypted with familiar formatting. The message was brief: observed, approved, continue. He closed the file without smiling. By the end of the month, a small metal case appeared at his bunk. No sender, no log. Inside was a single black armband, stitched with silver threading, marked only with the Earth sigil, and a code known only to the few who had completed survival deployment under silent warfare doctrine. It wasn't a medal. It wasn't recognition. It was a signal to those who knew how to see it. Cadets from other species began requesting joint sessions. A squad of elite trainees from the Kalex system requested a demonstration on reactive combat. The instructors granted the request. Liam ran them through a 30-minute session without speaking more than 5 sentences. At the end, the Kalex squad commander removed his insignia and handed it to Liam in a closed fist, an ancient right from his world. Liam accepted it and tucked it away without fanfare. By the next cycle, something strange began happening. The Academy's central AI recorded a measurable shift in tactical training efficacy among mixed species units. Human-led squads had fewer injuries, faster objective clearances, and higher cohesion ratings. Reports started circulating through the chain of command. Other instructors, once skeptical, began requesting Liam's presence as a silent observer in advanced classes. One by one, the structures began to shift around him, not because he demanded them to, but because everything around him began to orbit the gravity of his restraint. The tipping point came when Ambassador Thiel, the diplomatic envoy from the Layari Concord, visited the Academy. Her guards were selected from the elite Jathari, a species bred for combat and ceremonial protection. Her presence was formal, symbolic, until the unthinkable occurred. An off-world data breach triggered an Academy-wide lockdown. One of the ambassador's own Jathari had been compromised by an external signal, hijacked remotely, and weaponized with neural override tech. Before anyone could react, the cadets found themselves locked down in the main training deck, with one Jathari turning on his own. Liam reacted before the first command was issued. He tackled the weaponized Jathari mid-charge, locked his arms behind his back, and redirected the kinetic energy of his exosuit into the floor. The collision shattered the tiles beneath them, but left the attacker disarmed. It was over in 6 seconds. When the alarm ceased and the override was confirmed neutralized, Ambassador Thiel approached Liam herself. She said nothing at first, only studied him for a moment. Then she removed the ceremonial ring from her right hand, a woven lattice of crystallized airstone from her homeworld, and offered it to him. He didn't take it. She asked softly, "Why not?" Liam answered with the first genuine smile many had ever seen from him. "Because I didn't do it for the ring." Word of the incident spread beyond the Academy. Holochannels picked up whispers of the human cadet who took down a compromised Jathari in under 10 seconds without drawing blood. The footage was scrubbed before it reached open networks, but the name began surfacing in encrypted military communications. Vance, L., human operative, provisional instructor, strategic class anomaly. Within 2 months, the War College on Earth quietly renamed a training hall. No announcement was made, just a plaque bolted to the entrance, bearing the name Liam Vance Tactical Complex. It carried no inscription, no ceremony. but everyone who had been watching understood. Back at the academy, K-Rex invited Liam to a private sparring session, not as a lesson, not as a test, but as a conversation in motion. They fought for almost half an hour without exchanging a word. At the end, both collapsed on the mat, breathing heavily, evenly matched. K-Rex laughed. "You were never the silent one," he said, panting. "We were just too loud to hear you." Liam lay still for a moment, eyes closed, and replied, "Most people are." That night, Liam walked alone across the outer observation deck, where the dome opened to the star field above. He stood at the edge for a long time, hands behind his back, watching the quiet pulse of distant galaxies stretch across the dark. He wasn't looking for home. He wasn't looking for Earth. He was waiting for the next place that needed silence to speak, and when it called, he would be ready.